And we're live, just like that.
Finally live.
We'll cut the conversations we were having because we did not know when we were going live, and it sprung upon us. Hi, Will. How are you?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm not too bad. I'm not too bad. I don't even know whether we'll have a PowerPoint at some point in this video. I don't really know anymore because of technical difficulties we've been having with our producer who has got a new laptop for a short period of time, and it's been fair to say he's been given the short end of the laptop straw, and it runs like Windows 5. So
it probably is Windows 5.
It probably is Windows 5. That's generous, actually. Oh,
here we go. Is the PowerPoint up? Has he managed to get it working?
It's us.
Oh dear, it's still us.
Still us.
Well, here we go.
And here we go. Ooh, hey, good work, Josh. Right. So last week, if you did not know, we started our, division previews per the weeks, and we are on week 2. We've gone from the NFC North to the AFC North, and we are going to do this kind of week on week. Because in this one we'll talk about people's draft needs. This series will continue after the draft, but then it'll just be what they gained in the draft rather than what they needed, because it'll be finished.
We'll know what every team, what players they've taken, which is exciting. It's come so quickly though, hasn't it? The draft. These last few weeks have flown by really, haven't they?
It has, and I'm so glad it has, because it's a much needed. Like, I've never been so excited for a sporting event, and I don't know if it's because it's the first NFL draft I've watched, or there's just nothing else to be excited about. Literally,
at the moment, is there?
No, the world will be watching in the basement of what's his name?
Roger Goodell's basement. He was reading the picks out from there.
And I did see people saying I think people should chime in the booze into his basement that he gets every time he comes on stage. His son's just next to him. Boo! But we'll move on. So that will be coming up next week, and next week it'll be a break from our division previews, which we're doing. The series we're kind of going over now. It will alter next week to our final ever Will's mock draft 3.0, my mock draft 1.0, the Sports Corner's final mock draft, and then that will lead up to the night time where me and Will will go live for all our live reactions to the NFL drafts and the picks as they come in. I think we're planning to go live at midnight, because what time does the draft start?
It starts at 1 o'clock, and I think it'll be on till about 4 or 5ish. So it's going to be a long stream.
And if you can't get onto, because I know it's on Sky, I know you can get the pick if you don't have any access via the NFL Network or via Sky, or maybe if you're an American or via ESPN or wherever, the Fox Sports probably, because they always have a robot in the war room, I remember. But if you don't have any of them, feel free to come and join us. We'll react together, hopefully have a few laughs and have a lot of snacks, because to get to stay up to
the best thing about it, this stream is free.
Yeah.
Unlike NFL Network and Sky Sports, you've got to pay for. This is free, so just come on to YouTube and join us.
Trust me, it's the only thing keeping my Now TV subscription. Honestly, the only reason I've been holding out for 2 months of no sport on Now TV to get to this day, and then it's done after that. But as much as the excitement for the draft is upon us, and it is upon us, because it's only a week away, and we're very excited next week to do our mock drafts for the first time. Mine, anyway.
Your first mock draft.
Yeah, it's going to be bad. It's going to be awful. But, also, in terms of next week, you'll be doing a one with trades, and I'll be doing one without trades. That's the kind of way we've decided to do it. Because, one, you've got an extensive knowledge in comparison to me. But, two, I didn't want to mess around with trades. I could see some possible trades happening. Maybe the Eagles trade up to get one of the elite wide receivers. But I won't talk about that. I'll leave that stuff to you.
I'm going to make mine. It's fair to say I'm going to make mine a bit more interesting than my other ones. Because there's going to be trades on draft night. We just don't know who's going to trade it. But I'm going to make it a bit interesting. I mean, these mock drafts, it's kind of a mix, because we like to do what I think the teams will do, but also what we think is best for the teams. If we were the GM of that team, what we think would be good if they did. So we can mix it a bit and, make it a bit interesting.
And there's always shocks from what I've seen on draft night, over the last couple of years. But hopefully there isn't too many shocks at the start of your draft, because all of the top section seems to be pretty.
It does.
We know
it's pretty similar, really. The top of the draft pretty similar, but it's just like there's a few players that are rising up the board. And there's a few players that are like maybe dropping in value. They're thinking there's some teams that have always, or like the Broncos are rumored to be wanting to be traded up, and so the Falcons, they're also rumored to be wanting to trade up. So we'll see what happens anyway. But that won't be till next week, so we're not going to spoil it too much.
No, we won't. But 4 teams that will be in the draft next week, unsurprisingly, because it's the NFL. But anyway, it's the AFC North, the AFC counterpart of the division we did last week. This is the division containing the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Cincinnati Bengals, the Cleveland Browns, and the Baltimore Ravens. I will let Will take over because, again, he's very nicely made this PowerPoint. And then you can lead in and we'll do exactly the process we did last week, where it was how they did last season, how we think they're going to do next season after we've talked about their draft needs and what they picked up in free agency. Take it away, Will.
That's fine. When Josh skips to the next slide anyway.
I love this patient wait. Because we don't actually know when. There we go. Oh,
I must say that they've been pretty fun to make, these PowerPoints so far, actually, to be honest with you. So I'm glad we've managed to get it on the screen. Josh's laptop's managed to hold up for us. Anyway, first team. Go on. What were you going to say?
No, I'm just saying it's only one slide his laptop can handle. We ain't getting another one.
Anyway, the first team, the Pittsburgh Steelers. So last season they finished with an 8-8 record, and obviously they missed the playoffs. They could have made the playoffs via the wild card, but I think a loss to the Jets kicked them out of playoff contention, which is pretty embarrassing. But yeah, they also placed the franchise tag on linebacker Bud Dupree, was their main free agent, really. So they've kept him around on the franchise tag. They weren't very active, but they signed some nice players, I think. They signed Colts former tight end Eric Ebron to a 2-year, $12 million deal, which a couple of years ago he was a Pro Bowl player. So that's a nice addition to their offense. And they also signed former Chargers fullback Derek Watt to a 3-year, $9.75 million deal, who is the brother of Steelers linebacker TJ Watt. So the brothers reunite on the Steelers. They did a little trade. They acquired Chris Wormley from the Baltimore Ravens and a 7th-round pick in exchange for a 5th-round pick, and both of those picks are in next year's draft.
Yeah.
However, they lost some notable players. They lost Javon Hargrave, who went to the Eagles, the pretty good nose tackle. They lost him. He signed a biggish deal with the Eagles. They lost Nick Vannett, the tight end, and they lost Artie Burns, their former 1st-round pick cornerback. I think they declined his 5th-year option. He went to the Bears. And they do not have a 1st-round pick in this year's draft. They traded it for Minkah Fitzpatrick. And, I think it's the 18th overall pick they lost. So it's quite a high pick. But in my personal opinion, Minkah Fitzpatrick is a better safety than what you could have got at pick 18. If you wanted to get a safety, they could have gone other routes. But I think the player they got in exchange for that 1st-round pick, Minkah Fitzpatrick, still pretty young as well and on a cheap contract. I think there's no complaining about it. But obviously you would prefer to have that 1st-round pick.
Yeah, but I think, as you say, if they wanted to upgrade the safety position, it's smarter to get Minkah Fitzpatrick proven, and I don't think any of the safeties, bar one,
as good as him,
is good enough to be picked, in my opinion, or is even close to immediate Minkah Fitzpatrick level. So we'll go back to last season. They finished with an 8-8 record. From what I remember most about the last season was the injury to Big Ben. Which arguably, it derailed their whole season because 2 backup string quarterbacks who are not good enough to be starting in the NFL. You've got Devlin Hodges and
Mason
Rudolph, almost like Kyle, even though he plays for us. I hate the fact that out of all the names in the NFL, why is there 2 Rudolphs? I don't know.
There's Rudolph Red-Nosed Reindeer as well.
Yeah, don't think he played in the NFL, but I'll give you it. But we'll go back to the 8-8 record. What I remember the most about them was offensively, they had no chance of making the playoffs. Like, I'm sorry, they just didn't get enough points on the board. I think defensively, that's what got them to where they got.
I agree. I totally agree. I think when you look at their defense, it's a very young, upcoming, very athletic defense. They've got TJ Watt, who's an awesome linebacker. He's a very good blitzer as well. They've got their 1st-round pick last year, Devin Bush. Brilliant linebacker, very, very athletic, very quick. So he's kind of replaced Ryan Shazier, who suffered that terrible neck injury a few years ago against the Bengals. He's fitted in well. Obviously, they got Minkah Fitzpatrick, They've still got Joe Hayden at cornerback. They've still got Steven Nelson. They've still got Cameron Hayward on the defensive line. So they've got a pretty young and upcoming defense. But like you say, once Big Ben went down, their backups were just not adequate, and they just couldn't move the ball.
No, and it's why I saw the idea of Jameis going to Pittsburgh, and I thought, you know what, it makes sense. Because to be honest, with Ben being out the whole of last season, I think to see them fight it out in training camp would have been a very interesting matchup. And I think Jameis could have very well come out on top. I do still think this is a good fit for him. But he's not signed there, so we can't go into that. But as you've said, as we'll repeat, Devlin Hodges and Mason Rudolph, they weren't good enough to carry the Steelers. So I'd actually say an 80-8 record, if you look back on it and the way it happened, isn't the worst for them. I think they would have obviously had playoff aspirations. And to be fair, they still could have made it late on. Yeah. But with the lack of a starting level quarterback, even an adequate quarterback, they were going to struggle.
Well, we've heard it many times before, haven't we? Like, a team's only as good as how good their quarterback is. And Devlin Hodges and Mason Rudolph were not good enough. But you've also got to look at the Steelers. They lost Le'Veon Bell. They lost Antonio Brown the last couple of years. Those are two very good players, and they were two of their best players for the last couple of years. Why they were going on big playoff runs, because they had those two in their prime. You take those two away, they're obviously not going to be as good as a team. But I think the place where the Steelers are always going to be an elite franchise is their coaching. And Mike Tomlin's still one of the best coaches in the NFL. And it was proved this year, because when you look at the roster overall, it's not an amazing roster, but what Mike Tomlin was able to do and still manage to win 8 games, to me, is pretty impressive. And we look at the notable losses. Javon Hargrave's a bit of a big loss, but you look at the others, they're kind of just fringe players, and they added 2 nice players in Ebron and Derek Watt. They didn't really, lose any massive players. They added some nice players, but I think when you look at Steelers next year, those young players are only going to get better just because of how young they are. They're going to be second-year players and third-year players, and I can only see them improving, to be honest with you.
I think they had a very steady off-season. No moves that'll groundbreak the world. I don't suddenly see them as the Ravens superseders as of with the moves that they made. I like the move. I like Eric Ebron. I do. Experienced tight end. I do think he'll be good. Gives Roethlisberger another weapon. I like the idea of Derek Watt. It's all right. But he does join up with his brother, which is quite nice. But if I'm not mistaken, it's really weird, because we'll talk about the draft and then we'll talk about their projection for next season. In terms of the draft, what do you think they need? Because they don't have a first round pick. But for me, I was thinking when I first did kind of lined up what they might need, I saw edge rusher was an option. They might want an edge rusher. I saw adding another linebacker, which is a good idea probably. And also I thought in my head wide receiver to pair up with Juju Smith-Schuster. Because
you got the name right.
It was hard in one take, I'll be honest. But as we said, the Steelers didn't score enough points. So if you had a good wide receiver too, now you've jinxed me. Smith-Schuster as your number 1 and Eric Ebron at tight end, that's a lot of weapons, and that can make them an offensive force and a defensive force. We'll get into names in a minute, but where do you think the Steelers need to improve?
Yeah, I do agree. I think they could do with another offensive weapon. They drafted James Washington a few years ago in the second round, the wide receiver from Oklahoma, and he took a step forward this season. I think he'll be looking to take another step forward next season and solidify himself as the team's number 2 wide receiver. I think with Juju and him, I think you've got 2 good young weapons. I'd look at a receiver, probably not to like the 3rd round, 4th round, because I know they do have 2 4th round picks. So they could even look to trade up in the 3rd round if they wanted to with one of those 4th round picks. I like how you mentioned they could do another linebacker, maybe make that defensive line a bit younger, because I know Cameron Hayward was still a very good D lineman, but he's getting a bit older, and you need someone opposite of TJ Watt to rush the passer. Obviously, you kept Bud Dupree, which is good. But another position, we talked about their backups not being good enough, and Big Ben's getting older, and he just seems to be getting more injured. Why not target, in my opinion, one of the most overlooked players in this year's draft at quarterback, and that's Jalen Hurts from Oklahoma.
I knew you was going to say.
I think if you look at it, last season with Oklahoma, if you take Joe Burrow's 60 touchdown season out off college football, off the history books, Jalen Hurts is this year's Heisman Trophy winner because he came second in the Heisman Trophy voting, just because of how good he was for Oklahoma and Lincoln Riley. I think if you can find a way to get him in the third round, or maybe even you might not want to waste his second round pick on a backup quarterback. You might want to get a player who's going to impact your team straight away. If you can get someone like Jalen Hurts in the third round, to be the heir to Ben Roethlisberger, I think that would be a really good pick for them, and it's something they need to start looking towards, in my opinion, because we've seen the last few years, Big Ben, his body's wearing down a bit now, and he seems to be getting injured a bit more.
I was going to say, how long does Big Ben have left? We don't know. I like the idea of Jalen Hurts. I think he's a very good player, and I agree. He's just behind Jordan Love and Justin Herbert. I don't think the gap's as big as people would think. I think the ceiling's there for Jalen Hurts. I think he's got a very high ceiling. Whether he fulfills it, that's yet to be seen. Could also maybe they pick up someone like Jake Fromm. Obviously, Ben's not as mobile. Maybe they want to stick with the same kind of the way they structure their offense. So maybe
or Jacob Eason as well from Washington.
Or Jacob Eason as well, because they're both big players with just big arms. Really, I don't want to say that's all they bring to the table because that just feels harsh on them. But
it's their main attribute, isn't it?
Yeah, it's their main attribute. They haven't got the mobility, and from what I know, I don't think Big Ben does either. So they wouldn't have to change much in the way they play to, secure that younger quarterback. But I agree. What have you got then at them taking at that pick? Who have you got? Should I say?
Would you say in the second round? I would probably say Jalen Hurts. You see, Jalen Hurts, in my opinion, I think he's an early 3, late 2, and the Steelers are picking quite early in the second round. So maybe you could look to trade back and pick up an extra pick and then pick him. It would be a nice addition, I think, Jalen Hurts. Defensive lineman, maybe someone like Justin Madubuike from Texas A&M would be a nice replacement for Javon Hargrave or Marlon Davidson from Auburn. I think those are the defensive linemen they're going to be looking at that will still be available when they're picking. The safeties, I think they're all right at safety. They've got 2 pretty good young safeties, and the corners, for me, are still decent enough for the moment. Like you picked Devin Bush last year in the first round. You've got TJ Watt as one of your linebackers. You see, linebackers, one I do like is I've completely forgot his name. I think he's called Davis Gaither. Atta Davis Gaither. He's a good linebacker they could choose to pick in the third round. Akeem Davis Gaither, that's it. I think he's called.
I am looking. Keep going. Akeem Davis Gaither from App State.
Yeah, and also Willie Gay Jr. Another linebacker he looks really talented, but he just got those off the field issues, those red flags. Can he be a player in the NFL and stay on the field, not get suspended? Talent wise, there's no questioning Willie Gay Jr., but it's the red flags on off the field. So those are a few targets I think they could target in the draft. I just love to see him draft Jalen Hurts in round 2 or 3. I think he'd be a really, really good fit with Mike Tomlin.
No, it's fair enough. I still like the wide receiver pick, and the thing is, this class has got so much depth. I mean, if you get to the second round and you could still get Denzel Mims, KJ Hamler, Jalen Reagor,
Brandon Ayuk.
Brandon Ayuk, KJ Hamler. I don't know if I've mentioned KJ Hamler.
You mentioned, Chase Claypool's another guy who is a freak of nature, really, how tall he is and how quick he is. I think he's one of those people that could be picked in the second round just because of his pure athleticism. I
mean, for all we know, Laviska makes it to the second round just due to his injury problems.
I think he does. I genuinely think he does.
If they can pick up Laviska Shenault, they're picking the second round. I think they'll be very happy because if you mention, I can't even remember the guy's name you just said, the other wide receiver they have.
What, James Washington?
Was it the one that you said made strides last year? I can't remember his name.
Yeah, James Washington from Oklahoma. Yeah.
So, I mean, if you have a wide receiver core of Smith-Schuster, Washington, and even add any of the names we've just mentioned, that is a lot of weapons. And I think, for example, if you do bring in Jalen Hurts in the third or fourth round, it'll be good for him as if they all kind of go forward together as a unit. It could make the Steelers quite fun to watch, actually.
Yeah. So, one more. I'll mention one more just quickly because I know a lot of Steelers fans when I've been watching mock drafts the one player they really want is a running back called J.K. Dobbins from Ohio State. They really want him.
I was going to mention, do you think Clyde Edwards-Helaire, or do you think, more to the point of, do you think their first pick will be a running back?
I mean, it could be, because James Conner's a decent running back, but he seems to struggle with injuries as well. And Benny, who did they got last year? They got Benny Hill Jr., something like that. They got him late in the draft last year. Was a decent fill-in, but this year's running back class, we've mentioned the wide receivers, we've mentioned the cornerbacks. There's a lot of good running backs in this year's class as well, which they could pick up in the second round. It won't surprise me. It really won't surprise me. I've heard that the Steelers really like J.K. Dobbins from Ohio State, like I mentioned. But I think if you picked one of Dobbins, Helaire, Jonathan Taylor from Wisconsin, I think all three of those guys are going to be just Swift. I think DeAndre Swift would be gone by the time they pick, but he might be there, because I think that this year, when you look at the draft, there's not a lot of teams that are desperate for running backs, really, especially in the first round. Anyway, I think there's going to be a lot of running backs picked on day 2. So yeah, I could definitely see that.
Well, where do you think they end up? Because where do you think in the division they finish? Because we'll do this again, like last week.
Yeah, I think it's tough, but I do still see him as the. Look, I think the Ravens, who we're going to come on to later, we both know we're both going to put them at the top of the division, aren't we? Yeah, they're going to be the winners of the division. The Bengals, yeah, they're going to get Joe Burrow. We know they're going to get Joe Burrow, but they're still not going to be competing for the playoffs. I think it's going to be between the Browns and the Steelers. It's going to be super, super close. Who finishes second? Just because I know the Browns have been hyped up a lot last season, but we'll come on to the Browns later on. But I think the Steelers, it's looking second or third in the division. I think the over and under. I think the record, the 8-8 record, whether they finish below the 8-8 record or above the 8-8 record, is a question that I don't want to answer until after the draft.
Well, sadly, we didn't leave the AFC North until after the draft. But to be fair, mate, I don't think you're giving. I think the Bengals will definitely get better.
They'll get better, but will they improve to a point where they can reach the playoffs?
I don't think they have the draft capital like the Dolphins, where they could make that jump within a year. I don't think that's really available. I mean, look at how much San Francisco invested in that defense before they made a Super Bowl. Maybe it takes a few years of the Bengals getting a few lower picks before they can really be classed as, this is it. They're going, to the next level. But I agree. I personally think they'll finish second, I'd probably say. But I do think this is a division where there's a standout and then the other three.
Yeah, vice versa. I agree. I think the Ravens are they're going to win the division again. I don't see how they do it, but I will be interested to see how the Steelers' young core progresses this season. And I think, look, we all know the question for the Steelers is, can Big Ben stay fit? If the answer is yes, they're going to be competing. If the answer is no, I can't see him making the playoffs.
I mean, if the answer is no, bring in Jameis Winston. That's the solution.
He's still unsigned. He's poor Jameis.
He is. The tribute episode will wait another week, but it's fine. We'll move on to the next team now. We'll wait for Josh to get there, but it's all right. It's not his fault. Who is the next team, just before it comes up on screen, Will?
I think it's the Bengals. Yeah, Bengals.
It is. There it is. I'll let you talk through their brilliant season last year.
Yeah, so the Bengals obviously had a phenomenal season with that 2-win season. They finished last season with a 2-14 record, which was the worst in the NFL, hence why they have the number 1 overall pick. They placed the franchise tag on star wide receiver AJ Green, which, according to reports, was at the request of Joe Burrow. They said he wants to keep him around as a number 1 weapon. Now, in free agency, I think they were pretty active. They signed some players to big contracts. They signed former Texans defensive tackle DJ Reader to a 4-year, $53 million contract. Again, he's another player who's late round pick. He's proven himself in the league to be a good run stuffer, and he had a breakout year as a pass rusher as well. So I think that's a nice pickup for them. They signed former Vikings cornerback. Well, they signed 2 former Vikings cornerbacks, Trey Waynes, to a 3-year, $42 million contract. In my opinion, that contract is pretty big for what you're getting with Trey Waynes. I think he's a player who's still youngish and might improve, but it's just how much more can he improve as he reaches his ceiling. And they give him about $14 million a year, which in my opinion is quite rich for a player like him. This deal, however, that they signed Saints safety Von Bell to a 3-year, $18 million contract. I like that deal a lot. He was on the market for a while because he was being overlooked, I think, just like many of the safeties were. The safeties, unless you're a superstar safety, you're not really going to get paid top $1. But
No.
3-year, $18 million contract for the Bengals to get Von Bell, which is $6 million a year. I think that's a really good deal for the Bengals and Von Bell himself. And like I mentioned earlier, they signed another Vikings cornerback, Mackenzie Alexander, to a 1-year, $4 million contract. So maybe a prove-it deal for him, see if he can play better and get that bigger contract next season. Notable losses, they didn't really lose a lot of big players, in my opinion. They lost Taylor Eifert, who is a good receiving tight end, but he just cannot stay healthy. He's had a lot of injury issues in his career. So he's gone to the Jags. They lost Andrew Billings, the defensive tackle, who they replaced with DJ Reader, and John Miller, the offensive guard, who I think he joined the Panthers. But again, not a massive player to lose. And as I mentioned earlier, they have the number 1 overall pick in the upcoming draft, which we all expect they'll select Joe Burrow to be the new starting quarterback.
We'll start on last season, as we do every horrific, politely. But do you know what? They won't mind it because of who they're getting at number 1. I mean, the Dolphins tried to do this, but they just did it worse. The Bengals fully went for the tank. They were not winning it. They didn't look like they were going to win a single game. I think they beat the Jets, didn't they? Or was it the Dolphins that beat the Jets? I can't remember.
I mean, I don't remember them beating a good team.
No.
Just being honest. I think they were 0-10 at one point, 0-11 or something stupid like that.
Yeah, it did look like a no-win season. And I do think the time had gone on Andy Dalton, unsurprisingly. I mean, if you a 2-14 season as a quarterback, it's unlikely you're coming back as the starter, especially when you get the first overall pick, because we know how quarterbacks like to be picked early in the draft. But in terms of last season, even some of the players couldn't stay fit. Though you talk about Tyler Eifert couldn't stay fit. AJ Green, he wasn't.
I don't think AJ Green played the season at all. I don't think he played a game.
No, he wasn't fit. I mean, we'll talk about some of the signings they've made to bolster. The Trey Waynes and Mackenzie Alexander is their double corner now, so they could probably play both of them as their lockdown corners. Or maybe
they still have William Jackson as well, who they drafted in the first round a few years ago.
Not Mackenzie Alexander, but
what's that?
They probably play Trey Waynes instead of Mackenzie Alexander.
Yeah, I mean, you could put all three on the field at once. You could have Trey Waynes and Jackson on the outside with Mackenzie in the slot.
Yeah. But in terms of Trey Waynes, he never quite reached the heights that I think was needed of him or wanted of him. On a standout defense, he was not a standout player. It's just the way it is. But then again, the Vikings corners were an obvious issue last year. But then again, all of them have left, apart from Mike Hughes. But we'll get to DJ Reader. I do like that. I do. I think the Texans, sadly, don't have a very good defense, in my opinion. Well, they don't have a very well-run franchise, but I don't think the defense was ever there. The reason they made it as far as they did. I think it was quite heavily on the quarterback, but I like this signing of DJ Reader. Von Bell, I like that. Do you know what? I don't know about you. I'm liking this relooked defense of the Bengals.
It definitely looks better than it did before. Like you say, they've got two brand new corners. They've got a new guy in the middle to play next to Geno Atkins. So they've got two really good defensive tackles there. Von Bell instantly becomes his starting safety. I like the moves, what the Bengals have done this season. They've kept AJ Green for another year, and it's only a 1-year deal. They've not signed him to a massive contract, just a 1-year prove-it deal on that franchise tag, and they can let him walk next season if he don't do any good. I do like what the Bengals have done.
See how he does with Joe Burrow, because Joe Burrow wanted him to stay.
Yeah.
And see, if he can stay fit, and 2, if he can stay fit, how good can he be? Because if him and Burrow can string up a connection, it'd be interesting to see how many wins that can carry the Bengals to with a good enough defense, which they clearly didn't have last year. As he said, notable losses, you can call them notable if you want, but they're just losses. And we'll go, obviously, to the draft. They have the number 1 overall pick. It's Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow. But with them also having a high first round pick, it means that their second and third round picks and fourth round picks are also going to be the first in each of those rounds. And we know how deep this class is. They're going to get a really good player in round 2, really good player in round 3, hopefully anyway for their sake. But they're going to have first teams in each round, which I think is good for them. Because like we've seen many times, the first round, you've got those top 20 players, in my opinion, in the first round that are true first round talents. After that, it's kind of like they're fringe. They're still first round players, but you could also see them falling into the second round, and that's where the Bengals can jump on that and maybe get another first round player in the early second round.
I was just thinking in my head then. I'm just going to type something in on the old Google in front of me. But I would absolutely love if in the second round they reunited Edwards-Helaire and Joe Burrow. Because if you that gives an option in the run game. Because I think with the Bengals next year, if it's AJ Green and Joe Burrow as the standout players, you know what's happening on every play. He's targeting Green, and if you at least have a running back that people can think about, then that might.
The thing is, they do have a running back that people can think about, and that's Joe Mixon. He's a very good running back. But the reports early on in the week was that Joe Mixon, if he doesn't receive a new contract, will be sitting out the off-season. He will be sitting out off-season programs, which, if you look at that, if you're the Bengals, you think we can get a younger running back in this year's draft who could be just as good as Joe Mixon. What's the point in paying the big bucks?
No, he's a very good runner. I'm just looking at last year's stats. He attempted 278 runs, 1,137 yards. I mean, arguably their standout player on offense last season. But I just love the idea of him reuniting Edwards-Helaire and Burrow. But I think they've got other options to think about before that.
Yeah, we could see a trade down in round 2 where they pick up an extra round 2 pick, and then they can take Edwards-Helaire and still get him like mid second round and pick up another second round pick to get another player. I think with the Bengals, it's just overhauling that roster completely, and the more picks, the better for them, really, because obviously you want to get the best players in each round, but if you can trade back, I don't know, a few spots and pick up an extra pick, that gives you another shot at a player. Because in my opinion, if you trade down in the draft, you're always the winner, just because you're going to get extra picks and extra shots at a player. And we've seen in the second and third round that there's been more Hall of Famers in the second and third round than in the first round. More picks the better, in my opinion, for the Bengals. But we'll see how they do with Joe Burrow next season.
I still think they are 4th in the division.
Yeah, I agree.
However, I do want him to slowly build up over the years, and I'd like to see where they are in 2 or 3 seasons' time. Shall we move on?
Can move on, yeah. The last thing I will say about the Bengals is I'm interested to see how Joe Burrow does with an offense that doesn't have Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Thaddeus Moss.
Yeah.
We can look at it was an unbelievable season by Joe Burrow, but their LSU coach is very good and their offensive weapons were unbelievable. I'd like to see how he can carry a franchise by himself, which I think he can do just because he's got that personality, Joe Burrow, where he played for Ohio State, he got transferred to LSU, proved everybody wrong. All he's ever done is prove everybody wrong in his career so far. So I'm really excited to see how he does with the Bengals.
That's the right attitude, but you are right. The LSU team was crazy last year. You look at some of the prospects in this draft, and a lot of them are LSU prospects, and it's
incredible,
scary and you can see why they're national champions. But we will move on to the consensus dumpster fire. I never said it. I'll let you talk about it. Go on.
So the next team, the Cleveland Browns, finished last season with a record of 6-10, missed the playoffs, which coming into the season, they were many people's favourites to make the playoffs and potentially a Super Bowl, but that was over by mid-November. They fired head coach Freddie Kitchens, who, in my opinion, his personality was never suited for this job. With a team that's got so many big personalities, I don't think he was ever suited for it. But I like the hire of Vikings OC Kevin Stefanski. I know you don't like it because you've lost Kevin Stefanski, but I think he will bring stability to this franchise and new ideas to work with the still young quarterback Baker Mayfield. So I do like that hire a lot. They were very active in free agency, like they always are. They signed former Falcons tight end Austin Hooper to a 4-year, $42 million contract, which he becomes the highest paid tight end in the league. And I'm sure George Kittle will be very happy about that because that's just up the market for him.
Yeah.
They signed former tight ends offer to tackle Jack Conklin. I really like this move. 3-year, $42 million deal, only $40 million a year for tackle of his quality is very, very good, and you need to protect Baker Mayfield because that was their weak point last year. They placed a second-round tender on running back Kareem Hunt, who, after he got released by the Chiefs, many people were questioning, can he get his career back on track? I think with him and Nick Chubb in the backfield, that's a brilliant 1-2 punch to have, and so they've kept him around. They signed another 8 players, but they were to smaller, like one-year deals, but they did sign them. I'm just not going to put them all down. Notable loss, however, I think they lost some notable players, in my opinion. They lost Joe Scoba to the Jags, who's a tackling machine at linebacker. And they also lost Christian Kirksey, another linebacker, to the Green Bay Packers. So linebacker looking more like a need for them now. And they lost Demaris Randall, who I think is a pretty underrated safety. I think he went to the Raiders on a cheap deal. But despite that, they did sign Cal Joseph and Andrew Sendejo to safety anyway. So they've looked like they've re-signed some safeties anyway, making that need a bit of a lesser need. And they currently have the 10th overall pick in the upcoming draft, where there's rumours they might be looking to trade down, which I think for the Browns would be good for them if they don't like a certain prospect at the 10th overall pick.
No, if there's not someone on the board that they think is necessary to get, you might as well trade back, pick up some extra picks. But as you said, the one thing about the Cleveland Browns is stability, because there's not been a lot of that over the last couple of years, really. They were meant to take that next step, and they never have.
No,
I don't think they've got too many personalities for me personally. But there was rumours that came out this week, wasn't there, about the Cleveland Browns alongside the Minnesota Vikings over Odell Beckham Jr. But that's one of the issues I'm talking about, is like, Mike Florio made a good point, is if this was false, which is what was reported, why would you not just push it away straight away, like say this is false, like immediately after it comes out, instead of waiting and letting the thing brew? But it's not happening, I don't think. But we'll look at some of the signings they made. Austin Hooper, I mean, they're now the highest paid tight end. Is it? Am I right?
He's now the highest paid tight end in the league. He's not the best tight end, but he's the highest paid.
Well, get that money, as they say. But I do think he's a good player. I like Jack Conklin, because even though the Titans' offense was where it was really rolling last year, they had to protect Ryan Tannehill, and they did a fair good job of that, as you can see, because of the season he had. I'm excited, as you said, to see Kareem Hunt, how his career progresses with this second round tender. But again, it gives him another weapon, and people are going to be worried about him running the ball. And I think it'd be really nice for maybe Baker to play some play action and give him more time. If he is the quarterback at this point, they may pick a quarterback at number 10. I don't know.
Maybe.
But and we'll talk about the losses. I think you're gonna have to help me.
Josh Schobert.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's Schobert.
Schobert, yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
however you want to call it.
You're right. He's the notable loss. I think Christian Kirksey they can probably deal with, and Demaris Randall as well. But overall, I'd say a decent off-season for the Browns.
I would definitely agree with you, and I don't think there's any excuses now for this Browns team, just because they've got the new head coach in. And if you look at their offense, I mean, you've got Baker Mayfield, a quarterback. Yeah, he didn't have the best season, but as a rookie, he was rookie of the year. He was a rookie of the year candidate anyway. But when you look at the offense, you've got Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb in the backfield. You've got Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, David Njoku, Austin Hooper at tight end. You've got an improved offensive line. This year, you've got to think the Browns do better. But as we know, it's the Browns, and they're the kings of letting people down. And that defense, it still could do with a bit of work. I like Denzel Ward at cornerback, and I like the safety that they signed. But linebacker now they lost Schobert and Kirk's the linebacker, looking like a bit of a need for them as well. And the defensive line as well, it's not too bad, but again, it's a place where it could be improved a lot. So I'm interested to see where the Browns go this in the draft. I think it's either got to be offensive line or defense, because if you look at the skill positions, you don't need anyone else, in my opinion.
Well, you've segued brilliantly, by the way. I do have them take it. Well, I'm not going to talk about my draft yet, but on my sheet of paper that I did this research last week, I did have them taking Tristan Wirfs, which is the offensive tackle out of Iowa. 6'5", 320 pounds. I mean, he's a beast. He is a beast, and he's definitely up there with the top of the offensive. This is a deep tackle class as well, offensive line.
It really
I'd
is.
say, yeah, I think it's the deepest you've probably seen in a long time. I think in the top 20, you'll see more offensive linemen tuck than a lot of years. Yeah,
Probably
a lot.
more on, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the guy is a freak of nature. I've just looked actually something here, and it says he could probably squat a bus. I was like, you know what? You're probably not wrong. So,
I mean, like you said about these offensive tackles as well, that the top four we've mentioned, Tristan Wirfs, Andrew Thomas, Jedrick Wills, and Mekhi Becton, you could see those players picked in completely different positions. Either one of those four players could be the first tackle off the board. But I do like where you're going. I think offensive tackle, if they do pick at 10, it's where they need to go. They need to protect Baker Mayfield. If you have Conklin on the right and then a new draftee on the left, you've solidified your two offensive tackles, and Baker Mayfield would be absolutely chuffed for that.
Unlike before, I do think Mekhi Becton will be available at this point. I'm seeing him drop down draft boards.
Yeah, I think he will as well.
I think he will be available at this position, but I do think maybe he was a little bit overhyped coming out the combine because of how well his performance was. But I do think if I had the choice between Tristan, I mean, it'd be interesting to see if Jedrick Wills is still available, because he's another one who impressed massively at the combine.
I think when it comes to offensive tackles, I think it all depends on where the Giants go. Because if they take someone that's not an offensive tackle, then I think the first offensive tackle doesn't come off the board until number 8, Arizona. So I think if the Giants, because we know they like Isaiah Simmons a lot. Whether they go Isaiah Simmons or an offensive tackle, I think that shapes up the draft a lot. Because if they don't take an offensive tackle, the Browns could have a shot at one of the best ones in the draft. Because I know the Giants, they like Tristan Wirfs a lot. And the Cardinals also like Tristan Wirfs a lot. But we'll have to see on draft night what happens in these offensive tackles, because, like you said, they could go the top 4 could go in any position, I think.
And the strange thing you've said about that is if the Giants do take an offensive tackle, Isaiah Simmons isn't being taken in the top 5, which makes that just even more bizarre. And then if you think the Chargers go for a quarterback, Isaiah Simmons it might be taken at 6, but we'll talk about it.
In my last mock draft, actually, I had Isaiah Simmons going with the Lions at number 3, because I personally, a lot of people like Jeff Okudah to the Lions. I think Isaiah Simmons is a perfect fit for the Lions. And then I think if Isaiah Simmons is off the board at number 3, the Giants, they've got to take an offensive tackle, I think, just because it's the next best option, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I think we've said it many times. This draft really starts at number 3, and it's going to be really interesting to see how it shapes up for the Cleveland Browns.
I agree. And the Cleveland Browns, as we said, they'll probably be in that second, third slots fighting. But if there's a year where they can make the playoffs, I know it's probably been said for multiple years now, this is the one. This is the year. I believe in Kevin Stefanski, and one thing I will say is it's a new look Browns. It's not stale. I feel like this is a real, genuine rejuvenation. But we'll have to see if it rejuvenates on the field as well, because it's been a stinky franchise for the last couple of years. But
yeah, definitely. But we'll see how. I mean, Odell. This will be Odell's second year with the team. Maybe his chemistry with Baker Mayfield improves, and it becomes the old Odell Beckham that we've previously seen with the New York Giants.
Leave the diva at home and just be a wide receiver. That's all you need to do. But we will move on. There it is. Look, he's so ready. Go on, Josh. He's ready.
Working.
Somehow. Is this? Yeah, it is. It's our 4th and final team. It is the Bengals flip reverse record. The Baltimore Ravens. I would like you to take us through the Baltimore Ravens.
So the Baltimore Ravens last season, they finished with a 14-2 record, lit the league on fire with MVP Lamar Jackson. However, were stopped in their tracks with their first playoff game. Well, they got a bye in the first round, so they didn't have to play in the wild card round. Yeah, they got knocked out straight away in the divisional round by the Tennessee Titans, and Derrick Henry, more specifically, run them over. So that was a shame to see.
What they were plowed through. I mean, I had the Ravens, like when I was predicting the thing, I had them winning the Super Bowl because they were so mesmerizing. And Derrick Henry took a literal tractor and just mowed the whole of the franchise down. And I mean, that image of him.
Stiff arming old Thomas.
Yeah,
He turned old Thomas into a lead blocker, didn't
he? Absolutely brilliant. But not for the Ravens, of course. But they'll be looking to bounce back. Sorry, continue. I did interrupt.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, MVP Lamar Jackson. He didn't have the best playoff games, but we'll see how he does in the season after that. But overall, I do like what the Ravens did this offseason. They franchise tagged their edge rusher, Matt Judon, who had double-digit sacks. And he was a late-round pick, so well done to him for getting that big franchise tag and a nice chunk of change for him, and they keep him on the roster. The move I like, though, for the offseason for this Ravens, in my opinion, is one of the better moves in the whole entire offseason for any team, and that's trading for star defensive lineman Calais Campbell in exchange for only a 5th-round pick, which is absolute daylight robbery. I don't know what the Jags are doing there. They could have got so much more for him. And I think the Ravens have also restructured his contract as well. So he's going to be there for another 2 years on a nice deal. So that, yeah. So if you want to replace, if you want to, stop someone like Derrick Henry running through the middle of your defense, put this guy in the middle of your defense, and that's a big run stopper to have and a nice move. Yeah. They signed former Broncos DT as well, Derek Wolfe, to 1 year, $3 million deal. Again, another fantastic signing, a cheap deal, an experienced player who's won a Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos. They actually signed Michael Brockers from the Rams on a 3-year deal, but his deal fell through because apparently they couldn't agree to terms, or he failed his medical or something like that. So they got Wolfe in replacement for Michael Brockers. Notable loss, however, they lost some big players, I think. They lost Michael Pierce to your Minnesota Vikings. They lost Patrick Onwunsah, the linebacker that he went to the Jets, a very good, underrated athletic linebacker. He's gone. And they traded Hayden Hurst to the Atlanta Falcons when they didn't really need Hayden Hurst on the roster because they've got Mark Andrews, who was a Pro Bowl tight end anyway. So he's a loss, in my opinion, but not a massive loss. He's a notable loss, but not a massive loss.
I think the biggest loss...
The biggest loss is the guy I'm going on to now is Marshall Yanda. He's going to be. We know he's going to be a Hall of Famer, offensive guard. He retired, so that leaves a big hole in their offensive line that they need to replace. And they currently have the 28th overall pick in the upcoming draft in the first round, which they could go many different directions.
They do. We'll talk about last season. Set the league alight. Legitimately, there was not enough good things to be said about the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, they'd secured their playoff spot come the last week, and they still decided to rest players, I think, and they lost. Did they lose in the last one? I think they did, didn't they?
What's that?
When they rested all the players on the final week, even though they had a rest week as well.
Yeah. I think they lost. So.
Upon reflection, I think that was a bad move. I think the 2 weeks off was too long. They could have played the team because they got the bye week anyway. I don't think but then again, you play Lamar Jackson, he gets injured, you look like the stupidest franchise in the world. So hindsight's a wonderful thing. The franchise tag on edge rusher Matt Judon, I like the deal. Again, as I've said about maybe the Texans, I think the Ravens offense stole the show last year. I'm very interested because I've got them in the draft bolstering the defense as well. I'd like to see Matt Judon paired with someone else I'll talk about a little bit later. But as well, Calais Campbell, stuffing runs, sacking quarterbacks, especially in the division they're in now. Him coming up against Baker twice. Baker will be crapping himself. Ben, if he's going to get hit by anyone, I'd be worried.
Don't get hit by this guy, do you?
No. And Joe Burrow, welcome to the NFL, young sir. But I like the Derek Wolfe deal. As you said, it was kind of a what do you call it? Do you know, like in soccer? Do you know deadline day when they make a last minute kind of replacement signing because they lost someone they weren't expecting to lose?
Yeah,
that's what it feels like, but adequate.
He's just an experienced player, really. If you want to make a championship run, you need as many experienced players as possible. So and a cheap deal as well. He knows how to get to the passer. I do like the deal pairing him with Calais Campbell.
I also, but I do think, speaking of experience gets you to Super Bowls and championships, that's why I think Marshall Yanda is a massive loss.
Huge loss.
As you said, I think definitely a Hall of Famer. From what I mean, I've not been a fan as long as you, but from what I've seen, how people speak about him, how people talk about how he played, just brilliant. Just a really, really very good player. And I do think Michael Pierce is the biggest of the other losses. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm very happy with that. But apart from that, again, they didn't need to do much in the off-season, but I think they've done brilliantly in terms of bolstering that defense for a Super Bowl run.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And when you look at this Ravens defense now, it's very star-studded. And if there's any time to make a run with, obviously you've got your MVP at quarterback, it is now, because the corners, they've got Marlon Humphrey, they've got Marcus Peters, he can be a bit of an annoying player, and he likes to speak what's on his mind, but he people don't like him, but he's a very good ball hawk, and he gets a lot of interceptions, and he knows where that ball is. So he's a good playmaking cornerback to have on the outside. So you've got those two at corner, you've got Earl Thomas at safety, of course, and you've still got your unbelievable defensive line. They've still got Brandon Williams as well, defensive tackle, along with now Derek Wolfe and Calais Campbell and Matt Judon blitzing off the edge. So yeah, I think the Ravens defense is looking a lot better with those additions. And their offense, maybe they could get another weapon at offense, but their weapon on offense is their quarterback, because he does everything anyway.
Yeah. So who do you have them taking in the draft? Because I've lined up a linebacker that they could take and an edge rusher they could take. What do you think?
I've got a linebacker and an offensive lineman.
Right. Should we go through who we've got? Because I've got Patrick Queen.
I've got the same.
Have you actually? Well, there we go.
Yeah, Patrick Queen, yeah.
And Yuta Gross-Matos as a possible other option.
Yeah, there would be two nice picks. I've got Patrick Queen as an option for them as well. He's very versatile linebacker. He can play inside, outside, probably better as an inside player. But yeah, linebackers I need for them, and if they got Patrick Queen, it just makes their defense even better. Yuta Gross-Matos will be a nice pick. I've got a feeling someone else, a team, is going to take him before they're on the clock. Maybe like a New England Patriots, someone like that. That's a sneak peek. But yeah, the offensive lineman I had them targeting is Cesar Ruiz from Michigan, the center/offensive lineman. I think he's a very good, very experienced player. And I know big boots to fill because Marshall Yanda's leaving. It is a big loss, Marshall Yanda, just because of how good he's been for a long time. So I think if you could get someone like Cesar Ruiz in the first round, you've got your offensive line solidified again, because I think he's a really good guard. However, I would prioritise a linebacker over an offensive lineman, I think.
Yeah.
But if the two linebackers are off the board, I think, in my opinion, the next best option is to get an offensive lineman. But like you said, the team's so good.
Yeah.
There's not many holes. It could go anywhere in the draft, really. It could go anywhere.
The consensus division winners. And that will probably conclude the episode. But before we go, I do want to mention The Athletic, which is basically, I think, the new breed of journalism within the sporting world. I mean, you talk about, it does NFL, it does WWE, it does football, it does cricket, it does boxing, it does contact sports like MMA. If there's a company that you are a sport you want to read about, I think The Athletic is the company for you, with the top journalists across the world. They've gone out and hired the top journalists, and also ad-free content from The Athletic. I don't know what's worse, but when you're reading an article and someone says, I'm not going to say what some of the adverts that pop up are, but not very good adverts that pop up at the side of your screen and just interrupt everything you're reading. It's the worst thing. And with The Athletic, you don't get that. But I mean, talking about, NFL, if you want coverage of the NFL of the highest quality with great articles, I mean, you've got Chris Vanini, who's a national college reporter. They've got Seth Emerson, who covers like all the Georgia athletics and stuff like that. So great names. And if you use our link, which is in the description down below, you can get, I think it's a 7-day free trial and 50% off your annual subscription, which, I mean, it's a no-brainer if you want to read about sports, because I don't know about anyone else, I'm kind of getting sick of, some not very good journalism from some news outlets, but for me, The Athletic is the number one. What do you think, Will?
I agree. The Athletic, it's looking like the main, news source on the market in terms of sports, just because they cover so many topics, and like you say, they get the top end guys talking about it. The Athletic, join The Athletic. It's the best one on the market, and as Kieran said, ad free. And how annoying are adverts nowadays on any platform you use. So yeah, The Athletic. Use the code down below.
It's unbelievable for me. It's expert pieces written by experts. That's pretty much all we can say. But as I say, use that link down in the description and get a really good deal. Because, I mean, a 7-day free trial, you get to see all the brilliant. You can read yourself to. Well, you've got nothing else to do because you're inside. So I'll go and read some of the Athletic pieces on your team of your choice because they do have. I think they do have coverage per team and stuff like that. So thank you very much for watching. Go
Are we
sign up.
doing the? Are you doing put the? Were you going to end the video there because we haven't done the rankings yet for the team?
Oh, do you want to do some rankings? We can end on rankings. We can end on
the rankings.
I've written some rankings. I can end on some rankings. I thought you'd shunned away the idea. Thank you for asking.
Let's do it. I'll add some more content.
But we will. So make sure to use that link in the description if you want to join the Athletic today. And finally, we will finish the video with our rankings. Should we start at number 1? Because I feel it's easier to start at number 1.
Yeah.
Is it the Baltimore Ravens?
Well, yeah, it might be the Baltimore Ravens, yeah. Yeah, Baltimore Ravens, obviously.
Ravens, isn't it? What record do you think they're going to finish with this year? Do you think they go to the heights of last year?
12-4, I think, for the Baltimore Ravens this season.
Ooh.
I still think they've got a brilliant roster. And, you know, it is always hard for a team who finishes 14-2 to bounce back, but I think their roster's that good. 12-4, 11-5, they still win the division, they still make the playoffs.
I was going to say, I said that like 12-4 was horrific. I think it was just 14-2 was that good. I'm going to go with 13-3 because they've actually got better, which is scary. But I think they'll come in some roadblocks because as they were top of the division, they'll get a more difficult run this year. Kind of how the NFL works. And with a late pick, they don't get that real big star, but they get what they need. So I'll go with 13-3. Who have you got at second?
Right. This is a tough one. This because there's two teams we know, the Browns and the Steelers.
I've actually got.
Not this year. I'm just going to be honest with you, not this year. But I've actually got the Browns and the Steelers both finishing 9-7.
Right. Are you ready for some controversy?
Go on then.
I've got the Browns 9-7. Got the Bengals 7-9. I've got the Steelers 6-10.
No.
Yeah, and the only reason I'm saying this is because lack of a first round pick for the Steelers. Do you know what? No, I'm changing that.
The Bengals are not winning 7 games this year. There's no way.
No, I'm switching that round. I've just looked at what I've written down, and no, I can't even justify myself. The Bengals are going 5-11. There you go. The Bengals are going 5-11.
I had the Bengals going 5-11 as well.
But I do think the Steelers will finish 7-9. I don't think they're getting better. I really don't.
Well, I don't think they lost that many players, and I like the additions they had. And getting Big Ben back is going to. They finished 8-8 with Mason Rudolph and Doug Hodges at quarterback. You're getting Big Ben back. Can Big Ben stay healthy? Yet to be seen. But I would like to see them draft Jalen Hurts, as I mentioned earlier. And I think when you look at the coaching of the Steelers, they're always going to be a contender. I think it's my opinion. The final standings are Ravens 12-4, Steelers 9-7, Browns 9-7, and Bengals 5-11. And whoever finishes second, you know, I can't really call the tiebreaker who I think is going to finish second. I'm not going to sit on the fence. I'm going to give you an answer, and I'm going to go with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Right. Okay.
I do like what the Browns did with their new head coach, but it's just the Browns, innit? You can't trust the Browns. I'm
going to apologise to Steelers fans across the world because I've just put you below the Bengals, and I'm sorry because I'm on no sleep. And why the bloody hell have I done that? I don't know. But we'll move on. We'll go Baltimore Ravens. I said finish 13-3. The Cleveland Browns come second with 9-7. The Steelers finished 7-9. I should probably apologise for that as well because that's still not great. And then the Bengals will finish 5-11. They'll get better, but they won't get great. And yeah, I don't know why I still can't get over why I put that. But we'll ignore it. It's what I mean. Joe Burrow's going to get more wins for this team, but I think it's too early to say they're going to be contending. I think they'll do better than 12-4 because it's impossible to do worse. Well, it's not impossible because you can finish 1-15 or 0-16, but I think they will win more games. But 5-11 is looking like their ceiling, in my opinion, just because. Yeah, they're getting AJ Green back, but he's another guy that can't stay healthy. And it's just how much impact is Joe Burrow going to have in his rookie season. But this is an ascending team. But next season, I think it's another rebuilding season where they don't really hit the heights and they only win like 5 games. No, I think a shot to the moon there for them, which is wrong. But I'll keep the negative Steelers record at 7-9 because that's where I think they'll end up. But thank you for joining us. As I said, let's talk about us for a minute. Next week, we will have our final mock draft 3.0 and 1.0. We will have then later that night the stream going live, watching the draft, enjoying the draft, because it's only a week away, and God, it feels so good. And he'll be back.
It's actually less than a week away, because at this time next week we will know who's been picked in the first round by each team.
Yeah, and we'll be getting ready, probably waking up around this time for day 2, because our sleeping pattern will be messed up, like mine's not already, because I've just put the Bengals above the Steelers. So I must
to be honest, mate, I think everyone's sleep pattern with what's going on is just completely messed up at the moment.
Oh yeah. Oh, honestly, someone put the other day, like it was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire question. What day is it? Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 1982. I've got no idea. I mean, it could be 1982. Who knows? But yeah, so we've got that next week. We'll be hopefully getting as many people in for that as possible, because it'll be a lot of fun, and we did enjoy doing the free agency frenzy stream. So we're back at that on Mondays. We have the Hull City career mode, which has not been around. The logistics I'll keep to Josh, and I'll let him describe on another day. But it's fair to say the controller's not been around, so but we'll move on. And but you choose career mode, so you get to choose all the signings. On Tuesdays, we've got the Wrestling Corner with Rowan and Simon. They talk about all things wrestling. I like wrestling myself, so for me, I enjoy the podcast. They've talked about recently, I think, or next week coming up, they'll talk about a mass exodus that happened in WWE. They got rid of 30 talent, and then also backroom staff as well, because of the ongoing pandemic, which was a shame. But they'll talk about all the people that got let go, I'm sure. Wednesday, we've got the Top Corner, which is the granddaddy of them all, which is everything European football. We've got Bundesliga team at season coming up this week. And then after that, it's the big pub quiz, which Will be there for, hopefully. We'll finally have Will on a football show, because believe it or not, he likes other versions of football as well.
Yeah, I do like other sports as well.
Yeah, I mean, the last time he was on a football one, I think it was the 10-hour deadline day stream, which was fun.
It was very fun, very tiring. At least this time we'll be in the comfort of our own homes for the next draft, because of that studio is too warm.
It does get too warm, but sadly I don't own aircon, so if it gets warm in here, I'm screwed as well. And then obviously next Thursday, as I've said, it'll be us doing our last mock draft. Before we go, as I said, check out The Athletic, expert pieces, no ads on every sport you can imagine. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you.
I will end on one more thing.
Oh, go on.
Rest in peace, XFL.
Yeah, filed for bankruptcy. And rest in peace to the Steelers, if I think they're finishing below the Bengals. Thank you very much. They're not. Steelers will finish above Bengals. Still negative, though. See you later.
See you later.
We wait for Josh.
Waiting for stream to end.